Hello, hello, hello. It is good to be back. It feels a little too long. Too long. What's going on, David? What's going on, guys? Hello, welcome to Dungeoneers Pack Live. My name is Josh. Thank you guys for tuning in. Dungeoneers Pack Live is a weekly live stream where I and guests discuss topics for D&D 5th edition to help provide insights and solutions for problems that you may have at your table. Joining me this week is DM's Guild creator Fil Kearney, who is doing a hell of a job of converting Magic the Gathering ideas and concepts, and specifically the mana system, and bringing it into D&D 5th edition. What's going on, Phil? How are you doing today?
And I'm living large today. Having a great day.
All right.
I love being out with you. I love the conversations that you have, and I'm always happy to be a part of them.
I always enjoy having you on, too.
Thanks.
Take a little sip of my coffee. I had a little bit of a long night. My fiance's not feeling too well, so didn't get too much sleep. So a little coffee to kick me in. What's going on, Karen? What's going on, Drunken Yoda? What's going on, guys? So today, Phil, what are we going to be jumping into?
Oh, we're so I've got a number of books on the DM's Guilds that converts 5e spellcasting system into the 5-color Magic paradigm. Most notably the 5-color mana spell point variant rules, but I've also been creating different iterations. Like I did a book of warlocks for with each otherworldly patron is one of the guilds in Ravnica. I built a half casting version of the Way of the Four Elements monk specifically so that you could curve the Strixhaven backgrounds, granting you spellcasting features to actually work with the monk as a half caster instead of just the basic key system. And on my own stream, I've done things like build a Dimir blue-black variant of the Way of Shadow monk, as well as an Azorius Senate white-blue variant of the Ranger Conclave, which is the precognition mages, where they can see into the future, about kind of like Minority Day. If you're not familiar with Ravnica already, they can see into the future, and they see crimes that are going to happen before they actually happen. And when I was going through that ideation process, it's like, that made a lot of sense as a ranger, as like an investigator in an urban environment. But then that led me down the rabbit hole of their white blue magic, which is a different take than what the typical outdoorsy sort of roaming through the wilds sort of ranger approach, which then curves into, well, if they have all these land features and they're in an urban environment, especially on Ravnica, where all the colors of the 5-color mana system are connected to land types, that just kind of led into, well, if you've got rangers and you've got druids that are using an MTG system, if they're going to be having biomes or land types that they have features that are keyed to, why couldn't we reapproach the different types of land that exist inside of a game world from a 5-color mana perspective? So if you have a druid that, instead of being only like a circle of the land, instead of being like forest, what if it was circle of the land green? And we already know from, if you're familiar with MTG, that like green equals forest, but there's so many other biomes that exist, like Amonkhet and Kaldheim, especially like Ravnica, which is a worldwide city. How does green get represented in these different territories? So how would that work? I don't know if I'm rambling or not.
Oh, no.
That's the ideation process that goes through it. And next year, I'm going to be doing an update to the Color Mana books anyway, because of Theros and Strixhaven having come out. It's time to expand it. And it's like, what a great opportunity to curve this land idea into just the 5-color mana fold in general. And we just started ranting about it on your channel, and so I guess here we are now.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing, right? With D&D, when it comes to land biomes or just land types being addressed and put into pretty much the nature-driven classes like Ranger and Druid, they tend to stick to a specific damage type or just a specific aesthetic, and only a specific set of spells going there. But then when you jump into Magic the Gathering, like you said, there's green mana, while even though it's represented by forest, it doesn't necessarily mean that the world you're visiting and the world you're going to be involved in is going to be forest. It's not going to just be nature, right?
Right.
And we see this with settings like Ravnica and for D&D 5th edition, and then in other, just specifically for Magic the Gathering, you have New Capenna, which just came out, and then you have another hyper urban cyberpunk setting of Neo Kamigawa,
Yeah.
and they're still green and forest, but it's trapped in this pretty much cyberpunk world. So
exactly. So it's like like Tasha's, like almost like a 180 of like trying to pull away from, well, this land idea isn't working out, so let's just bail on it and give you alternate features. But I love that land environment stuff. It's just, how do you make it so it's more practical? Like MTG pretty much has like swamps and Underdark as like both are black, and like there's a ton, and like ruins as well is generally black because it's all decay. And it's like characters end up spending a lot of time in what could be considered a black environment. So it's like, why not have your characters built around utilizing that black mechanic? So if they're going through ruins, they can use their abilities, and then once they find out that you go down a few levels, now you're in the Underdark. It's like, well, this is black mana all the time. So it's just I mean, they're curving the narrative away from being bound to the land. But if you just change your perspective about how are you looking at lands, it's like, this could actually be really relevant, which is the space I want to explore. So,
all right. So before we really jump into it, I want to go to my first question, because this kind of leads into everything we're kind of just talking about right now. What do you feel is missing with Druids and Rangers to have them connect to the Magic the Gathering D&D setting world? Like, what is completely missing?
Wow. Yeah. I think there's not much other than the spell lists that may or may not be granted to those classes and their archetypes. Other than the potential spells, there really isn't a lot that bonds them to the land. I mean, like there's like a super generic, if you're in the wilderness, then your ranger gets to pump out all of this default overrides that basically kill the environment challenge tier altogether.
Yeah.
And the circle of the land, there's like so many different environments that it doesn't really address it, other than, hey, like here's a stack of features that you get, and if you happen to be in the environment that's yours, then you get to use it, but the rest of the time, SOL.
Yeah.
So I don't know specifically how well expanding environments into a color mana paradigm is going to alleviate that disparage, but that's kind of the space that we're exploring. So like how viable can you make it so that land and the environment that you're in can actually lean into the narrative that you've created, and how dependent are you going to be in being inside of that narrative at all in the first place? So
because
I don't know.
For me, personally, playing in a Ravnica campaign for like about a year and a half, one of the things I kind of just noticed, and it's not exclusive to Druid and Ranger, there isn't a really solid, at least within the actual official content, a one-to-one solid translation between Magic the Gathering feeling and setting, and the core concepts of like the mana system and the locked-in identity you have within those colors to 5e. And while I understand on a mechanical level why you don't want to do that, so if you want to play a wizard of Boros, you're a Boros Legion wizard, so there's you're going to be locked into sort of like thunder and fire and lightning spells, as long as with some sort of radiant divine magic.
Sure, right.
But you're playing a wizard, you're going to be you're not locked out of like certain spells like ice and other elemental spells, or other in general other spells that aren't identical, like that have the identity within the Boros. And I get why they don't do that, but at the same time, it seems like if you do limit those choices, you end up being more of a flavorful character, while not necessarily being a more powerful character.
Right. Oh, there's the core mechanics book that I put out addresses that, because it takes spells and effects, and it categorizes them by either like the aspects that define them, like binding, or like defense is more of a white flavor as opposed to like emotion and aggression as a red flavor. So like there's those different aspects. Like if a spell like Charm Person is an emotional thing. Like you can play it off as being an emotional thing. So you could have Charm Person as a red spell, but you could also have it as like controlling manipulation, which would be black. And then there's also like the deceit that goes into it, which is more of like a blue flare. So like blue, black, and red are like the three colors that you could easily see Charm Person fall into. But then there's also the damage types, like 4 or 5 types of damage per color, like you said, radiant or fire or lightning, or like thunder is like a mix of like white and red. So, but then on top of that, you have like what the defaults are like out of the box. These like this spell is assigned to these different colors because of these aspects and damage types. But you could also research it, and like if you have your Boros wizard going to like the Parhelion or whatever to get training, and then like if you're spending downtime activity training with them, then maybe you could pick up I don't know, something that deals like Phantasmal Killer, for example. That would be like more like a blue or a black spell. But if you're training the Parhelion, maybe they have a version of it that's white and red, or white or red. So like the more time you spend with your guild and downtime activities, or gaining or using research inside of their libraries, you can sculpt your spell list to align with your color mana, so that I'm only white and red because I'm Boros, but I've got like 26 renown in the guild. So they just open up their books to me. It's like, do whatever you need to help us become stronger. And it's like, well, I'm going to convert a ton of spells to white and red. And while that campaign is active with that character, those spells are available for you and all of your followers because of the renown to be able to make use of those spells, for instance. So that's the kind of mana mechanics you can manipulate. And like if you're in the Parhelion, that would be like a location as a land that's white and red. Even though it's a structure, and maybe that would be like by default colorless, but it's Ravnica, so everything has a color flavor attached to it. So that's one of the paths. Like you could play a Boros Druid, and you could align yourself with white and or red mana as your color, so your lands are that way. So anytime you're inside of the Boros stomping ground, like maybe you could use any color any mana that you have as either white or red while you're in those territories. So you're diversifying your pool, making it easier for you to cast the spells that you want. That's one of the thoughts. So that's what I'm parsing out, and that's how I spend my stream time, like going through that ideation process. So
it makes sense though, and it also wraps up like certain gets characters a little bit more involved in the actual setting and drawing more inspiration from it, which is a big thing. Sometimes I think I see this a lot in general, just other folks when they talk about design, it's mechanic. But D&D is still a story-driven game, so finding out where the lore and how to encourage that and bring more story elements back into your mechanics and keep the flow of the game going is always something like I really enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, all the designs that you do for different character types. It's like the thing that I think the thing that is backseated the most in D&D is how there's 8 schools of magic, but after saying there's 8 schools of magic, who gives a shit? At that point it's completely irrelevant because there's absolutely no mechanics beyond if you're a wizard or not. Whether you're using necromancy or illusion magic, it doesn't matter, other than this is an illusion spell because we said so. But if there's actual mechanics attached to it, then you can build your mechanics to inform like that Ludo narrative that we hear Riker talk about on the cleric corner all the time. So that's just deep. And MTGs they build the mechanics and then they build the flavor around the mechanics, and so that flavor is automatically baked in. But D&D does it in reverse. They have the flavor, and then we try to figure out what mechanics complement that flavor. There just isn't enough crunch to back up that flavor, which is what we're trying to do. So,
all right, I didn't miss it, Eric, but thank you for the $2. Shout out to all my beefy boys. Thank you, brother. Thank you for stopping by and supporting as always.
Sweet.
All right, Drunken Yoda. Let's see. He has something he had to say. Bring it up. Oh, there is a white counterspell. If you go back to initial release of Magic the Gathering, the color rules weren't that defined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. The big. I think it was until Mark Rosewater really stepped in and took the lead of Magic the Gathering, where they started really defining the color paradigm. They pretty much how mana system was defined and worked. So prior to that, pretty much most spells in the original Magic the Gathering were blue. Like blue was like the king. Blue did everything.
Yeah. Everything's blue.
Yeah, everything's blue. But if you did damage, okay, that goes into red. If you're a big dumb creature, that was green. White didn't really have much going on except life gain, and then black was just discard. And now, like you see it in Magic Gathering now, a lot of it is spread out, so a lot of stuff has more identity. Not to go too off on a tangent, but the color, the mana system, the mana wheel, in that it does a really good job of being a stronger alignment system, especially if you're going to jump into the Magic settings for 5th edition. So there's things to consider, like if your group is going to be playing those settings, dump the standard alignment system and just full dive into the mana alignment system, because there's a lot more nuance. And I know folks always say, well, we want more realism, and that's what alignment does. Well, no. Well, the mana system actually has a lot more nuance and feels a little bit more realistic while still tying you to the actual setting in the world, because you're drawing not just you're drawing your powers from that mana, but that mana is an extension of your personality and your character's being. So that's another way to approach your character.
Shout out to Dice Try's channel here on YouTube. He's got a couple 100 hours worth of mana analysis, like color philosophy, and like if your character is like white, red, and green, how can you have those three colors playing against each other to have conflicts inside of your own personality that you have to have moments of tension for you to decide, am I going with A or B? It's like that stuff is it's amazing depth. Amazing.
All right, I want to get into my next question. Let's see. So we're going back into Druid Rangers because that's like the topic of today. This is the broader I guess look at them. How does Druid and Ranger draw their powers from? Obviously, they draw their powers from nature, but how does this affect the themes of the classes by converting this to mana? Because we've already mentioned that in Magic, mana, even though if it's like green mana, it doesn't necessarily mean it's strictly nature. It's more about, well, I can't, like, green is kind of harder to find for me because like it's life, but it's community.
Tradition's a big thing. Like the nature, like the very nature of nature is what's worked in the past. We should keep moving forward, and what isn't working that needs to die off. That's like the core of green, which is what works and what can we keep that works over time. Yeah. And so like a community that's built with a green mentality, if your druid was both druid and ranger, if like they had ties to a forest community or like the Feywild, it might be how does the green manifest itself in those areas? And it would be, they're small communities, so they have closer ties to nature because they're more reliant on the environments around them than the commerce and infrastructure built through urbanization, which would pull them away from that environment. So I think there's I think that the question was how does this integrate in with how the Druid and the Ranger work? Is that what we're asking right now?
Pretty much. How does this change from the traditional view of Rangers that are Rangers and Druids are looked at in 5th edition and just in D&D in general? How does that change when you apply pretty much the Magic the Gathering mana system to them?
Thank you. So if we're taking a radical example like New Capenna or Neon or Ravnica, where they're all existing inside of this urban environment, like supposedly most of the time or their entire campaign, it's the I think it's the essences of what each color represents. Like white and black has a lot of spirit and like black is more of the undeath side of things or taking away from people, while white is more like the natural order of your soul moving on from your body when you die. You can still access both of those things. So like a druid, even out in the middle of no place with no society around them, if you have a white blue druid focus, whether it's a circle of the land type or not, if they're focused in their drive is like say white, then the spirits that they're communing with may be like ancestral, like the ancestral barbarian, for example, would be a great example of white that would fold into this. Is like, these are my ancestors. So like a white green format might make a lot of sense. These are the traditions that are being whispered in my ear constantly about what is my next move, where do I need to go. I did a play test with a paladin oath of oath of is it ancestors or the ancient? It was the ancients, and he played white green, and his whole thing was that he has this cloud of his descendants that are constantly telling him, don't do that because I made that mistake 5,000 years ago, and you don't want to do that too. I can see that happening here. He's like, okay, well instead I'm going to angle myself towards, it's wherever he was going to go. Like his decisions he was making was, what do I think my ancestors would be whispering to me about that, what could happen there? So like a ranger or a druid, when they're entering an area, they could be bequeathing the spirits of that area to provide them, like Lorehold is a great example of that. Like a Lorehold druid could totally be like, what are the spirits that are in this area that could rise up and tell me of its past and tell me what's still here for us to explore. So yeah, you could like a black-red druid or ranger could be describing their magic as forcing the land to reveal its secrets to you for you to exploit. Like your magic, almost like the filing, yanks the energy out of the land to force them to serve you. So the flavor is there's a lot of different flavor angles you could take with it, even if you're not looking at a land druid. Like a druid of dreams might want to be focused on blue magic as just a thematic color because you're exploring psychic stuff. On those lines.
Oh,
does that cover that?
Yeah,
I could ramble.
No, that covers it exactly. All right. I think I'm looking at the time right now. Let's jump into some of this design work on it. I think since we're on Ravnica, we should start with urban environments.
Okay.
So, obviously, I think there's, when it comes to the druid and the ranger, urban environments don't seem that too connected to either of them because these are supposed to be the nature, the primal classes. But it's not unfamiliar to them because we've seen in certain either other settings or in other forms of media that there's urban druids and urban rangers. But so we see that, we know we can draw from. Thanks for stopping by, Eric. Thank you as always. Thank you for supporting, brother.
All
right. So how does this urban take on them really influence the classes? What should we look to doing? And then the other question follow-up would be how does that change when looking through the scope of the mana sources for Magic?
Right on. So one of the live streams that I have on my channel is this slow brewing project that I have for this Ravnica Hexcrawl campaign toolkit, where when you're going through either Rubble Belt ruin areas or actual populated urban areas that each, like say, mile or 6 mile hex is assigned to a specific color. So as when a DM builds the environment that they're going to have their game in, like they could have Azorius controlling one area and Dimir controlling another area, Azorius being white-blue versus Dimir being black-blue. Their common thread is blue there, but they're opposed to each other in that wheel. And so like when you're in Dimir territory, if you have blue or black as the color that you're assigned to, or have, I guess, attunement to as a ranger or a druid, then while you're in that area, you'd be able to utilize, I don't know, maybe you can make your skill checks at advantage, or like I mentioned before, like having being able to treat any mana that you use as both black and blue for the purposes of casting spells. And then so as you're going through the environments, the DM could either just randomly roll what different colors are in the hex grid and thus build what guilds they have controlling each of those areas, and do a progressive generation system while you're going through there. Or if you're like, this campaign isn't going to stretch more than say 50 miles, you could have like 10-mile hexes and have 5 primary colors between the 5 of them, and then see how the conflicts at the borderline between both of them would create tensions. Like Golgari is over here, while Rakdos is over here, and then Simic is in the middle of all that. How does that conflate and contrast with each other? So I guess in an urban environment, it's an issue of like what kind of infrastructure is in place. Ravnica has things like ley lines, which are like the, if you don't know what a ley line is and you're playing D&D, well then the quick skinny of it is basically magic veins that pulse energy through the planets. And you could be in a forest that has has a white ley line that flows through it. There could be like a lot of glades in that forest, open spaces. There could be plateaus that rise up above the forest that might indicate that environment was sculpted by the ley lines that run through it. So when you're building an environment, regardless of what the actual topography and the terrain is, the DM could like roll a d10, and every 2 numbers is one of the colors around the mana wheel. So even though you have, like, if you're looking at Faerun and you're looking at the Anarch Desert, and you could be like, well, there's a desert there, but I'm going to roll a die, and it looks like we have like a white ley line and a red ley line that run through there. Do they intersect someplace? Well, if they do, then at that point you've got like a nexus zone that is channeling both white and red magic. So what would that desert environment look like as a result of that? Yeah. So, that's some of the thoughts, like using ley lines and using hexes to be able to define colors as you move from space to space to sculpt what kind of environment you're actually going to run across during that hex crawl. So I don't know. I mean, that's some of the ideation. That this is still something I'm going to be going through, on stream for probably a number of hours, building all this stuff out. This is where those ideas are coming from.
It makes perfect sense, because I'm already pulling up some of the art for the people in the chat to see. This is strictly from the sets, the Ravnica sets, the new Capenna, which is the new urban environment set that they just brought out based off the 1920s. And they pretty much have Magic Fight it, and it's actually pretty sweet. And then also Neo Kamigawa, which is the magical cyberpunk setting. That they're all heavy urban environments. And the only one that has an official D&D book is Ravnica, obviously.
Right.
But you can still play these other settings if you want to like wrap your stuff around them, or at least draw inspiration if you're gonna want to go in a more I guess urban environment. Stuff like Eberron is a perfect example of like, it has there's a lot of heavy urban environments. Sharn is like pretty much the main urban city that is pretty much almost similar in setup to Ravnica, except Sharn is definitely way more developed. Ravnica, admittedly, is only one district, so they only put one district in the book, and there's actually quite a few. So DMs have
Sharn's really fascinating because it's on it's in a manifest zone. I forget the name of the plane, but it's the plane of air. So it has like the floating towers. Like that just screams blue.
Yeah.
But the bottom of it, like the bottom layers of it, is all like heavy industry and smelts and forges, which is like the further down you go, the more it turns red.
Yep.
Like Sharn's like a blue-red sort of area. So anywhere you're inside of Sharn, you could easily like an urban ranger inside of Sharn could dedicate itself to blue and red. A druid that's in that region could do similarly, and so you'd be able to use all your class features from that perspective while you're inside of Sharn. Well, I think something I noticed while I was thumbing through these as well, like New Capenna, the lands that they have, they're all really interesting because they're like I'm looking at the Cabaretti courtyard.
Oh yeah.
It says like when that enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice it, and when you do, you swap it out for a mountain, forest, or plains card. And then you gain a life as a result of it. So like in this setting or in this mentality, it's each area in the urban setting is controlled, kind of like what I was talking about before, is controlled by a specific family or like in Ravnica, a particular guild. And so like New Capenna uses the shards where it has 3 colors for each family as opposed to Ravnica, which has only 2 colors. So when they're building the lands here, they're not like the New Capenna. They're not presenting it as when you're in this environment, you get access to all 3 of these manas. Instead, they're like you can sculpt it so that you get the mana representation that you want, which could really change the narrative flavor that a DM could present while you're stomping through Cabaretti. It's like they've got the forest and if you wanted to lean into forest and plains cards, or rather not using the cards but just the color, like this region of Cabaretti is really focused on green and white magic, which could be like that really leans into the idea of culture and tradition. So like in those areas, it might be like really old buildings that Cabaretti has had control of for a dozen generations, and it just seeps with that family's magic now, as opposed to like outlying areas might all be red. Like the core of it might be white and green, but the outlying areas are red because that's new development, that's explosive growth, that's conflict, fighting the other families for territory. So there's and that could be fighting up against like red-black region of another clan. I don't know New Capenna. I don't know New Capenna well enough yet to know what the colors are.
I believe Cabaretti is Naya, so that's red, white, green. And the cool thing about them, they're actually based on druids. So it's like it's a family, like it's a druid faction family. So they're more in tune with actual natural land and are always trying to kind of like find these the natural resources to kind of keep themselves into power. So
that's awesome.
Not only do they try to keep like the tradition of the city kind of alive, it's also the freedom to express themselves and kind of be out there. So they're always partying and stuff. They're the ones that kind of throw a lot of the heavy parties in the city, which has been pretty cool.
Makes a lot of sense. That's awesome.
And then you have the Riveters, which are the Jund. So that's red, green, black. That's the working class. Those are the guys that are building the skyscrapers and everything. So they're the unionizers. Like they're probably like my favorite I guess crime family. I guess they're based off crime families. That's what they're supposed to be. Let me see.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes sense though, because they'd be tearing things down. That's a very black energy.
Yeah.
The like Ogari consuming what is old to create something new. That's super cool.
Yeah.
You get a druid, a riveter druid family could be a druid or a ranger in that environment. Could be very much exploring and looking at how infrastructures are forming cracks. And then as an extension of that, if you run across, like, say, a thieves guild, maybe the druid and ranger would be able to just naturally exploit the friction and contradictions inside of the organization's mentality or its own philosophies, where like for example, Xanathar in Forgotten Realms controls a powerful thieves guild, and beholders are arguably white and blue and black themselves.
Yeah.
And so, like, if Xanathar were to take control of another organization, what it would do is it would call a conversation with the people that are in charge of it and just dominate them. It's like, you're mine now. And they're like, yeah, we're yours now. But then everyone that wasn't dominated would be like, why are we doing this at all? And then that would cause a fractioning and a tearing apart of who would fall and fold with the dominated former thieves guild masters versus the people that aren't in that inner group. They're like, well, this is what we signed up for. So then you end up tearing it apart. I could see that same sort of thing being that like how the riveters would work from a psychological perspective, not even specifically bound to the lands. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So because I mean this whole idea is like these colors are more of like a philosophy that can curve into the lands themselves or the people that are inhabiting them. Like a druid and a ranger are looking at the resources, which is the thinking and the abilities of the people that populate that land as much as what the natural environment of nature itself is, right?
Yeah. All right.
I don't know.
Bring it
That's
up.
the only idea.
Yoda, Drunken Yoda's comment. He said D&D needs a blighted druid, crazy red black druid.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah, like a Rakdos druid. Just I'm already thinking, it's like, man, how do you do this? Because let me pull up some Rakdos art, because not everybody's gonna be familiar with the Magic the Gathering settings. It's understandable. Rakdos has gone through a transformation from the original Ravnica set, where they were mainly just kind of like these very chaotic demon worshippers. And now they're like this very performative carnival-esque guild that let me see if I can find them. I'm pulling them up for you guys on the screen, because there's some really, really awesome art, and I'm trying to think, man, how do you how do you make these guys a druid, right? And I'm trying to think.
One of the conversations I had gotten into on the Ravnica Reddit channel about how to portray Rakdos as heroes in your adventuring party.
Yeah.
And it's not, and from that approach, it focuses on like the Blood Witches, for example, is one are like commanders inside of like high renowned people inside of Rakdos, and they all specialize in picking out specific leaders in the other guilds to blackmail and torture to get them to do what Rakdos wants. And so like if you're a good Rakdos, you aren't so much focusing on I want to tear this place down, but you're picking out corrupt people inside of different areas of controls. Like this Azorius lawmaker is corrupted, and you can see that all the laws that they make are specifically benefiting Selesnya only, because we can then reveal that they're getting kickbacks and tie-ins to boost say maybe their white magic or just cash from Selesnya to have these decisions made. And Rakdos would specifically want to bring air to those things to reveal the corruption that exists inside of all the guilds, while Rakdos is Rakdos is blamed as being a corrupter, and Dimir is presented as a corrupter that's against humanity. But in this perspective, they're actually trying to strengthen and keep society healthy by revealing to people that aren't living true to what their colors are supposed to be, for instance. So a druid in that environment would be utilizing its resources to reveal and tear apart that psychological corruption where they find it. I think that'd be actually a really fun campaign to have a bunch of Dimir and Rakdos anti-terrorists or like freedom fighters, even to go and like tear apart a corrupt general in Boros that delights in killing people when he shouldn't be, or Simic that is causing pain to people in its genetic experiments without caring about whether they're even sentient or not. Like that'd be a really fun way to take this black red approach and make it a righteous cause. So I could run that all day.
The same point that you're making, because red black tends to be perceived as evil, because it's like those two colors that have this leaning of very selfishness and pain. That's pretty much where these align. But red obviously is the color of freedom, the freedom of expression, the freedom to live, to not be bound. And black is always about self-preservation and a little bit of selfishness. So putting those two together, the positive side of that is the freedom of yourself. To be able to freely express yourself in a way that that is exclusively you, and that fits within like a good aligned Rakdos. So you can even just be a character along the same lines that's trying to overthrow the system, but more so trying to create a space so that people can just be who they are and not feel like they have to be pretty much held down by the Azorius laws and the Boros oppression that they can be. I could see a bard along those lines too. It's just like you're a bard that is purposely out in the street for Rakdos and is kind of like this doomsayer. They would probably call him a doomsayer, but they're more about trying to promote freedom and stuff and try to get the people around it to be like, hey, wake up. Like, these laws are keep putting into place. It feels very on point right now what's going on in the world.
No kidding, man. I just had while you were saying that, I just had the revelation that we've been looking at it as a physical region or a physical biome, but there could be prevailing philosophies that exist inside of different areas, like the high elite aristocratic part of town where all the real movers and shakers are at could be very black societally, where they're only thinking about their own growth at the sacrifice of everyone else around them. While like you're talking like the Riveters, for instance, their approach could be like in like the black area of the region. It could be the people that are like in charge of the decisions that are made, while downstream you've got a bunch of people that are operating on a red level where they're just trying to build a better community for people in general. But so a druid or a ranger isn't using their color as in forest or swamp, but instead anywhere they go where they're picking up the psychological vibe of the society is downtrodden, they can use their alignment with black to be able to see how is that energy either helping or hindering the environment that is inside of. So it's not even land at all. Instead, you're building like this mindscape space, like this mind space where everyone is downtrodden in this area. So I think that'd be a really fun way to completely like just remove the idea, ironically remove land from it altogether, but instead create these psychological maps where like this forest might be green because it's got this maybe like a really old orc tribe, but it also has like this blue area because it bleeds into the Feywild. So you've got like this hobgoblin incursion that's happening where they're interacting with these orcs and they're trying to pull the orcs apart from their old clan to come take on this new philosophy that's coming from the Feywild that's encroaching. So that could be completely different. It wouldn't even matter if it was forest or a swamp or a coastline. If that dynamic exists, then the blue and the black energy, or like the blue and the green exist there at the same time. That would be a really fun approach to it. That'd be completely different. That would actually tie in Theros a lot, because then all the gods with their own color with their own color devotions, you could see their temples existing not only what is it? Thassa is like primarily blue, so obviously she's oversees the oceans, as it were, and you want to pay tribute to her when you're taking your ship across. But while you're inside of urban environments, it could be that it's a very fickle government that'll change its policies on the head of a dime. That's really chaotic. That's what Thassa is known for. That. Yeah. So in that environment, you could have this blue mentality of ever changing, always changing from a new approach of how they're analyzing things. I don't know. That's a thought that goes into it. But sheeple. Sorry, I just saw one of the threads. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up some Theros art too to people see, because I'm right on the blue. And you're seeing it with Thassa. See, people can see in the chat. Kind of seeing she don't mess around. She will just wash everything up. Pretty much like what you expect out of a Poseidon-esque what's it called, Greek-inspired god. She's very much on the same lines, I think, of Umberly, for those with Forgotten Realms lore. She's
also from the pirate movies. Same thing. Very, very fickle, very my way or the highway, but it's all blue as opposed to black or red. Interesting.
100% agree. So let's see. Let's get into. I'm looking at the time. Let's see if we can kind of dive into Arctic, because I think that we don't really have a desert setting yet for 5th edition, but I know at least with Arctic, we can pull and people can get inspiration and jump into Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Oh yeah.
So
Kaldheim has a lot of killer snow art that makes a lot of sense. Like Arctic Tree Line is both green and white. They don't like snow isn't a specific color. It's a biome that all the different colors as land representation can exist inside of. Like Kaldheim, it's all winter realm. So if you're going to have a balanced MTG game, you have to be able to represent all 5 colors, even though it's all in this frozen winter setting. So how do they go about expressing that? And like Alpine Meadow is green and white. Arctic Tree Line is also green and white. You've got the bark channel pathways is pure green because it's a frozen, almost petrified forest, for example. Where they have the Blightstone pathway, which is like a frozen swamp. So all these different ideas. The dark. I'm looking at Darkborn pathway, which is just a giant cavern that's frozen over in ice as well. So they all exist inside these areas, and you could take, if you wanted to dive in deeper with Rime of the Frost Maiden, you could take the 10 towns. And like it would probably be sitting on blue and white and green mostly, because like some of them have the lakes that they're fishing off of, and I think there's some forestry stuff with evergreens like towards the south, and if I'm not mistaken, and there's a lot of plains of just nothingness that could fall into white as well. But all of those would be reflected in their society of it's only us. We have to make sure we're sticking together. There's 10 towns that operate independently, but we all work together when there's a larger threat. So I think there's a lot of white and green energy inside of that would easily feed out. But at the same time, the whole deal behind the rhyme is that there's horrible things that are coming for them, and they've got the curse of the eternal freeze, which could be represented as black energy. That's new. That's starting to approach the area. That's throwing the energies off. So I think that'd be great. That would work really well.
Yeah, because I'm pulling up all the art, and like for me, looking at this and looking at how this could influence like characters and stuff. Phil mentioned their snow is not a land type. It is like a it's not, I don't want to say like it's an influencer, but it's some sort of a additional manipulator, and then within the context of Magic, it allows certain abilities to be triggered off of it.
Right, yeah.
And it's like it's just like a notification within the context of the game, like, oh, if you have this many snow permanents, you can do X ability.
Right.
How would you have that influence a character option? Because obviously it's like I'm pulling up all the people in the chat can see like the different lands. So we have like white mana with it's snow plains, and then you have snow islands, and then they can see snow mountains and snow forests, and then snow swamps. So people are able to kind of see already kind of how visually snow impacts the core mana system lands.
Yeah. One of the initial approaches was keeping the land distinctions that already exist for Ranger and Druid, and then obviously they have an array of spells that lean into different color identities that it can just stand as is. You get your features if you're in an Arctic setting because you are an Arctic land of the Druid. That's kind of how the system's already set up and how I've been already. That's the initial perspective, just keeping it as it is. But as I'm diving further into this and trying to align things with the different colors, like Arctic, desert, and urban in particular, are the three, I guess, environments where these colors are supposed to exist inside of. How would this is where we get to ideation?
Yeah.
I honestly hadn't thought about that additional layer of distinguishment about like an Arctic druid operating inside a specific color as being different from a desert as it currently stands.
Yeah.
But if you had like say a white red druid that were to move from Arctic into desert, what would remain the same between the two of them? And Arctic land.
Yeah, because let's see, because even then, like I have some of the Kaldheim lands up for people to see. We're also seeing this like there's dual color lands that also have the snow typing on there too. So snow very much kind of blankets and it just adds like an additional filter, I guess, additional layer onto the standard system.
Yeah, well, I think it creates like if you're a temperate zone versus a desert biome versus an Arctic zone, you could have a forest that goes from a temperate being leafy deciduous into a winter area which would be evergreen into a desert area which would be cactus.
Yeah.
So the forest still exists across all three of those biomes, but the energy between the three of them would be green. So maybe I mean, if you're going with a color philosophy off cuff, it wouldn't matter then if your druid is if you built a druid in green, you guys end up going to Rime of the Frost Maiden, you'd still be able to pick up on that green energy wherever you're going. That has that forest environment. If there's trees nearby, then it still clicks in as green. Or if you're in these in the 10 towns and they have a green vibe to them, because that's of the 10 of them, maybe you assign a different color combination to help distinguish the flavor from each other. And when you're in a community that resonates with the color that you've chosen, then I guess the base mechanic that I keep going back to is it doesn't matter what color. Like if you have green mana, it's always going to work.
Yeah,
because you're in an environment that encourages using that color. So that could be the most minimal baseline behind it. I honestly don't know if beyond that if there would need to be a distinguishment between white like a white dedicated versus blue dedicated druid that's in an Arctic setting. It could just be that maybe we'd have a subset like the circle of the druid for Arctic has its set of like 5 or 10 spells that it informs as being Arctic by nature.
Yeah.
Maybe while you're in that Arctic setting, like if you're a green druid and you're in an Arctic setting and you're in a green environment that's Arctic, you could use all of those spells using green mana, as opposed to like if it would normally be like blue or black, just because you're in an Arctic setting, those Arctic spells automatically curve into whatever color it is that you're using. So like you'd have, no matter where you're at, you would always have like this new list of spells that you could prepare as a druid. And since you're in an Arctic setting, all those Arctic spells you can now prepare in the color of your circle. That might be a fun way of doing it, and adding a lot more flexibility to how you're using it. Because like the mana pool, as it's being developed, is when you take a short rest, you can reassign the colors of mana that you have. But if you're devoted to like say Selesnya, which is white and green, if that's like how you're approaching your character concept, then when you go into that Arctic setting, you're automatically going to get all those cold-based spells assigned that you could then cast using white and green magic. That would be a way to be able to increase your spell diversity while allowing your spell pool to remain consolidated in white and white and green magic without having to dip into blue because you wanted to be able to cast this spell. It's like, well, that spell is provided to you now as white and green because you're in that environment. That could be an approach to it.
Because I'm looking, because I know sometimes, obviously with every Magic set, they bring something out and then they never touch it again. And the snow is one of these weird ones that it's sort of developed, sort of not. And again, the only through line I'm seeing, there's two ways that they approach why you're going to use snow lands that maybe we could take a little bit of inspiration from. That you can only use snow mana to cast certain spells. So that's what they have on certain spells that has like a little snow symbol. And then and then there's just signifiers like if you have this many snow permanents, snow lands, or snow permanents, things cost cheaper. So the latter, I think it's a lot easier if you're within a Arctic area, snow area. Uh, like you said, you can use your specific mana to cast those spells. Like that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Or like it doesn't matter what color mana you're using while you're in that Arctic environment.
Yeah,
If their spells off the Arctic Circle
yeah,
spell list, then you could use literally any color mana if you're a druid or a
yeah.
ranger. Maybe, yeah, that's a great idea. That'd be a really fun way to reward those characters for being out of their environment. It's like actually lean into that
Yeah.
environment because it's opening up to you. It's kind of cool. I like that.
Now I want to switch gears a little bit to desert on our last bit because desert operates a little differently compared to snow. So while snow is like an additional layer on top of lands and other permanents and other cards in the game, desert on the other hand is its own separate card type. So it's a land, but it's a descriptive. So it's like its own type of land, and it's not a basic, but it has access to colors, but also acts as a colorless source.
Right. But there's also like Amonkhet in particular, because you have to have all 5 colors, right?
Yeah.
So they have like these colorless or like devoid from hell, like they're like defiled, like Athos, for example,
Yeah.
would be coated in colorless land because all the magic has been completely pulled out of it. So maybe you would have like if you have to concentrate on a spell in that environment, it's at disadvantage because it's so hard for you to hold on to the magic in that environment. It's just cut off.
Yeah.
That might be a fun way to approach it. But Amonkhet also has all these different lands that have specific colors assigned to them, like the Desert of the Fervent, for example, is a land desert type, but it is devoted to red mana specifically. I think it's because of the different gods that are in Amonkhet. They represent different, I think, like emotions or philosophies that are inside of humanity. So each of their regions have this like strong color alignment that goes along with them. Like Desert of the Indomitable is green because nature is perseverance, and you can only change land, or you can only change nature. You can't destroy it. So the Desert Indomitable is devoted to green, and the Desert of the Mindful is blue because it revolves around thinking things through and an active philosophy, or how you're thinking things through, not just animalistically, but using logic and forward thinking. So each of those areas, I think, are controlled by different gods, kind of like Theros is.
Yeah.
That they have like their temples and their areas of control, and when the gods collide, that's when you see the friction between the colors along their borderline. And like No Man's Land is completely colorless, which I would love for Dark Sun to become a real thing, because having all these like the same hexcrawl idea of having hexes that are completely defiled, like maybe you have to spend attunement on different colors while you're in these wastelands. If you aren't attuned to a color, you can't access that magic at all. That could be a way to approach it, like where you have to bring resources with you. So like not only you have to bring food and water, but a wizard or even a cleric or a sorcerer has to prepare themselves to be completely devoid of magic environment around them. They have to bring it with them, so it becomes more difficult to do everything, like spell casting, like attack rolls could be at disadvantage. And so that like would lean into the Dark Sun flavor of like marshals are super superior in Dark Sun. Like entire wars are settled by a one-on-one fight between champions that represent each side of the army, and they respect it, because if you kill 5,000 people out of this army, there's no way they're going to survive. If monsters attack, that community is gone. So them risking their strongest soldier to settle a fight is often a great deal, because they can preserve their borders. But I don't know. That's kind of a random tangent, but I'm a Dark Sun nut. Yeah. So that thought is there. But yeah, the idea of desert, like unclaimed, or like maybe that's what druids are for in the desert, to breathe life into that desert. So it isn't just a wasteland. So the further you get away from where a druid circle is, or a particular ranger's conclave, more magic gets stripped out of it until it just becomes just completely barren. Like in that sense, the Druids and the Rangers are actively keeping life force fed into it so it could change.
Yeah, because what I'm noticing that feeds into that narrative is deserts on their own, when they're not touched by a specific color mana, they still produce mana, so they still have an energy. It's just doesn't have an identity attached to it until either the presence of a being. So like one of the gods from Amonkhet, you can see that their presence and their ideas, what they represent, is so pronounced. I'm not pronoun. I'm like pronounced. It's like it actually becomes an actual force that can influence the land in some shape, but still not necessarily be a full on flourishing with the actual mana energy. You see it there, and then you get where are they at? There are other desert lands that still produce colorless mana, but with some pretty much the mechanic they have is a pay a life, and then you gain a color of the specific mana. You see that?
God, that's so cool.
Yeah, so you're kind of giving up a little bit so you can kind of pull what you can from the world that's slightly touched by the small magic, the residual magic of that land. And then you have stuff like let's see. And then there's lands in Amonkhet that just flourish with, I'll bring it up over here too so we can see. You see that they flourish with the different mana colors, but they're, as you notice, they're all based on where society touches.
Right.
Which is a big indicator.
That further reinforces that philosophy idea where approach it from attitude and beliefs as opposed to actual land. But then that belief manifests and instills that essence into the land, which the Amonkhet is demonstrating really well. That's super cool.
Yeah.
One of the optional variant mechanics that I have in both the core mechanics book as well as the universal spell points and high magic is the idea of an epic wish, where I push out wish from 9th level to 10th level, so you can't access it until 19th level. But then beyond that, at 20th level, as like a second capstone for full casters for sticking 20 levels through, is you can open up a conversation with your DM where, like, if you have, say, like a wizard has 80 mana at 20th level, as does a cleric and druid, etc. That's just how the math works out. But you could be like, I'm willing to permanently sacrifice 15 mana from my mana pool, so I now forever will only have 65 mana left. But in exchange for this is how I want to change the world around me permanently. And then that becomes it's designed to be a campaign closer, where we don't have anything else to do and we're at 20th level, so we're going to close the campaign. And whenever I run I run 1 to 20 level campaigns every about 240 hours of gameplay. And so when we get to 20th level and when somebody sticks through, like I've had a bard and a wizard, and I now have a druid that's well on their way to hitting just single class 20th level. When they get there, it's like, what do you want to see changed about the world that I can pick up and use in future campaigns when we go back to this area? And like one of the campaigns was in Eberron. They were in the Demon Wastes, and the request was, I want to bring life and plant life back to the desert wasteland. They defeated the 9 and drove them back into whatever hell it is that they have in Eberron, but they purged the evil from the area. And like, well, now that there's evil not there, can we start having forests and fields grow again? It's like, well, how much mana are you willing to dump into that? It's like, I'll put 25 into that. It's like, well, I think you should be able to affect, say, 2,500 square miles as a result of that around the community that you build. It's like, now the orc tribes that were fighting for survival, they're going to have a new boon of prosperity. So when we come back around again, they're going to be getting into cultivating and starting to settle down, as opposed to being nomadic hunters, because that's the only way they can find food. They can settle now, so that'll change that environment. Anyway, that's something you could do. You could instill that much mana of a color. You're permanently burning that off, so that you push that color into the land around you. So that'd be a fun approach. I would actively do that. That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a great way to capstone a Darkstone campaign, as it were.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too is like even if they any sort of just like desert setting, and then you're having this new interaction with, because it does really change how Rangers and Druids are a little bit perceived. If you have like a desert setting where your core magic and specifically mana is in these pockets of civilization now, so you're and then now, but the Rangers and Druids are agents to spread that. And it makes it so that clerics also play a different role, as clerics now are working alongside them, but clerics stay in the cities because they need to keep the that power there and flourishing, while the druids and rangers are agents to spread that out.
That is a great approach. Or like if you like a conclave. Are like the frontline Marines of pushing this magic into an area, and then the Druids are like the army backing it up with infrastructure.
Yep.
And if an evil clear cult would go in and kill off that conclave, it would clear the magic from that area.
Yeah.
So it'd become nulled again. Yeah. Like maybe they're just trying to destroy maybe their goal is to destroy magic in the world other than black energy. So by killing off conclaves, they can collapse the ley lines and the color that they've been pushing in. That would be that's almost like Phyrexian. Yeah. That's like a real Phyrexian feeling. God, that would be so cool.
Oh, that reminds me too. Because last thing, this is more of a little off tangent now that you bring up Phyrexians, but let me see if I can find the lands, because there's artifact lands, like of all things too. Right. I think really cool as well. Yeah, and I believe they play really well in like urban settings. So like you get let me see. Are they in this one? I'm not sure if they're in this set specifically. I can look really quick. Let's go to advanced search. Yeah, there's artifact lands, which is the word you wouldn't think they would make a total sense, but they do. The Phyrexians, they're these pretty much machine people, have taken over this entire world and are pretty much putting it under their control. It is Magic's way of doing Terminator and Matrix. It's really what it is.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to take inspiration from this for like an urban setting, because this is, I think, where you would see like industry kind of flourish. You have these lands of mana that are also considered artifacts. I think that'd be an interesting approach to adapting.
Oh man, what is it? Like in Aliens, the atmospheric conversion.
Yeah.
Facilities and whatever the industry guy is, he like looks at it when he says, "Yeah, we manufacture those, by the way." It's like, so they have like a planet that's cranking out these like 40-mile structures on a conveyor belt to drop onto planets to change their. I could see that sort of thing. Like you drop a mana anchor into a hex, and it takes X amount of years for it to flood that area with the kind of energy, the color of magic that you actually want, to engineer the environment that you want. Like we want a forest here, so we have to drop a green anchor here, and have it churn out green mana for X decades for it to convert this area enough so that a forest will grow there. Like a druid circle could do the same way, but that'd be a fun way of making it like a structure that could be attacked or defended or used as a base of operations. Like in the Mournland in Eberron, like they could Cannons could start creating mana engines that pump out green energy, so they could drop it into the manifest, or the into the morning area, to start purging its colorless mana, its colorless lands, to start crafting it back into cultivatable land, for instance. That'd be a really cool campaign.
Yeah, you would see definitely. I could see this like you have a party of one artificer and a druid, and this is kind of how they science bro it together. And
nice.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that'd be so cool.
They both see the same problem of a piece of land being corrupted, and it's like, well, how do we combine our forces to actually fix this problem? How do we bring mana back through nature and through artifice? I could see that like as a big endgame thing.
dedicating infusions every day.
Yeah.
You get 6 infusions at 20th level. You only have 5 colors, so you could pump as many of your infusions into a particular land type, maybe to provide synergy bonuses to a ranger or a druid that's operating within like an aura area of your artificer, because it's actively converting the land through artifice into a different color type. That'd be a fun approach. But,
my last note on this, because I just want to point out, one thing I'm noticing about these artifact lands, all the other lands we've kind of shown and how like the mana philosophies are kind of like entwined. They show how they work like in harmony, even if they're opposing ideas. The artifact lands don't. They actually show the dichotomy. Like they show like they're split. So this one, I believe it's the red blue artifact land, which is newer, and then you have one side that is more red, and then you have another side that's influenced heavily by blue. So I'm wondering.
Oh, it's a bridge.
And it's a bridge.
Bridging the gap.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
So I'm wondering, the unnaturalness of the artifacts has a influence on them being able to work together, but not necessarily do it in a cohesive manner.
Right. Yeah, it's got stark contrast.
Yeah.
It doesn't blend. It just breaks. That's cool.
Yeah. And let's see, we're getting more. And yeah, this is the Gruul land, the red-green one. This one's interesting, and it's still, you could tell there is the stark difference of where one starts and one ends. So it looks like this is like a continuous idea throughout all of them. This is the Simic one. Yep, and it's the same thing. This green artifacty mossy land goes into this bluish whirlpool. Interesting.
Super cool. Yeah, the hex crawl idea, that's not gonna probably be finished until probably 2024. But slow brewing creates quality, so yeah. I certainly don't mind these super long tail projects. But stuff like this, being able to like it just speaks to like taking even just like randomly creating different regions of different colors, and what kind of friction or synergy do you create at the borderline between these two things? Is it something that you're presenting as harmonious, or is it something you're presenting as contrasting? And how would that change the narrative flavor of the environment that the characters are going into? That's fun. That's just fun.
I'm looking at the time. I think it's time we gotta wrap it up. Phil, where can people find you, and where can they support you at?
If my name is Fil Kearney, it's down there underneath me. If you put in a search for Fil Kearney, you'll find my Twitter, you'll find my YouTube channel, and you'll find a lot of the artwork that I've done for the books that I've made and other publishers and freelancing. So just for now, Fil Kearney, that's the easiest. I don't have an active website right now, but when I do, it would be filkearney.com. So, just track down Fil Kearney online, and you'll find me and throw me a shout out and say hey.
Yeah, and I have links to your YouTube channel right in the description, so definitely check out Phil. You stream almost about every day, right?
Mondays and Fridays guaranteed. And then other times during the week, depending on what my home life and inspiration will lead me to. Mm-hmm. So I'm online for at least a couple hours a week. Yeah, so definitely go in and support him and check him out on his streams. And if you want to reach him, obviously Twitter, anywhere else, but also he's in the Dungeoneers Pack Discord, so you can jump in there. And he's on a bunch of other Discords. You might see him on there too. So for some of our other friends, our other content creator friends, that you can go support them also. And what do I got going on this week? This week I just posted a video. I'm sort of coming back. I have a new character build video. Drunken Yoda requested it from over on Patreon, how to make a Blackguard, which is like the Dark Knight trope, the anti-paladin from 3.5. So I took ideas from the 3.5 Prestige class and then found ways to make it and fit it into 5th edition. There's a lot of old mechanics that were
changed or very similar, and it was actually pretty easy conversion. But it definitely is a multi-class. Cool. It was fun, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Next week, what do I got going on for live? Well, I think I'm going to be talking about. I think I'm going to do a tier list. I don't know. We'll see. Though some folks in the Discord asked like how I would rank the classes in terms of easiest to play and versus most difficult. So I might do a tier list and kind of break down the 13 classes and where I would rank them against each other in terms of ease of play. So I might do that, if not, or maybe something else. I don't know. And then I'm not sure if I'll get a video out next week. Like I said, I announced I'm going to slow down my production a little bit and focus a little bit more on changing my format, learning a couple new programs to edit stuff. And also, you're going to be seeing more of my face in videos. So the next video, hoping to get it out within, if I can get it out by the end of the week, I'll do it. If not, it'll be sometime the following week. I'm going to be talking about the Battle Master Fighter and different ways to flavor it outside of your typical Warlord Commander standard class that everybody likes to play the Battle Master for. So expect yeah, that one's gonna be fun. And then maybe after that I'll do another character build. We'll see. I'm trying to bring back some older ideas at videos that people like that I haven't been doing since I went full board on character builds. But it's all driven by lore and ideas to help you guys just create fun and different characters outside of your standard Munchkin super hyper focused sort of characters and just more lore driven. So yeah, again, thank you, Phil. Thank you. This was super fun. I love talking Magic with you and how to bring it into D&D. As always, you're always welcome back. And yeah, until next time, guys, you guys take care, and we will see you later.
Girls.